What's up, y'all? Sorry for the intro like that. I just getting back into the groove of things. A little rusty. What up, y'all? It ain't musty. Hey, sorry I haven't done a podcast in a little bit. I have been really busy living life. Shout out to my daughter. Shout out to Sierra, my middle daughter. She's an amazing volleyball player, and I took some time to step away from the studio last week, and I went and spent the weekend in Florida to watch her play in some volleyball tournaments, and she's amazing. She plays AAU volleyball, high school volleyball, and just love watching her compete. If you didn't see any of her highlight clips, go to TikTok, and I have all the clips. I posted a bunch of videos of her doing her thing, and she's just so amazing. So I'm so proud of her, and I just wanted to give her a shout out here. And then I took a week off from podcasting and hung out with my father. Flew him out from California. Shout out to the Big T. And spent a week just working on the house, doing things, hanging a bunch of ceiling fans. I got one flying over me now. Feels really fresh, and we probably put up 4 of those. And we put up some other stuff around the house and just kind of hung out, caught back up, showing them the stomping ground of what we're doing. What you see in front of me is a shirt that's been damaged by the puppy today. Didn't care to change for the podcast. Get over it. I'm here to talk, bro. I'm here to work. Been working and talking to you guys about the transfer portal. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you guys understand that I do spend a good portion of my day working on Twitter. I have been trying to help young men find their future, right? The next college they want to go to. And these high school athletes, transfer portal athletes, asking me for my guidance, my help, and I'm reaching out to college staffs, coaching staffs, and trying to get them the right fit and find the right school. And a lot of these young men were signing today. Today is National Signing Day. NSD, National Letter of Intent Day. You know, back in the day, February used to be an amazing time when everybody committed to schools. But now we have the early commitment period, and that takes away a lot of the luster from today. But there are smaller programs, and I obviously help with NAIA programs, Division 2, 3, FCS, JUCOs. I help everybody try to find their players and give everybody their dream. I've reviewed over 80 players this cycle. Last year was 300. We'll probably get closer to that number as the year goes on. Remember, I'm going to do this all the way until April, but we will find slots for these kids because colleges are going to lose players. Teams are going to lose players to the transfer portal, and they're going to have to backfill with somebody, and here we come. We got just the guy for you. So please pay attention to the high school film reviews on TikTok. Pay attention to the Twitter. It's all one word. RicoKnows TikTok, all one word. And I'll show it to you guys here in a second. Let's get started. We're going to go here. Let me pull it up. So this is it. And you guys see here, one of my players, Jamarj Bell, one of the very best wide receivers in America that they let slip through the cracks. He just had to sign with a JUCO, unfortunately. That is an FBS caliber player, extremely fast. He had 9 return touchdowns. 9 touchdowns for return. But they don't like him because he is short. He's small. He's the fastest guy you've ever seen. His acceleration is on 10, effortless, and he does his thing. So I'm constantly posting. You see I have a DM here, probably from a coach or a player. We don't know. And we're not touching. But if you want to give it a follow, keep up. I put out my top 10 list. I already put out my top 10 offensive linemen in the transfer portal, my top 10 best transfers, my top 10 underrated offensive lineman transfers. And this whole entire episode is about offensive linemen. So I did a lot of research in preparation for this show. And then I make my list. So anytime you guys ask me on TikTok or YouTube and you're like, hey, Rico, who's your top 10, this or that? The lists have already been put out and published. And the unique thing is we looked at last year's list and I was 90% accurate. 90% accurate with my list as far as ranking players, telling you what's a terrible transfer, what's a great transfer. I have a really good grasp of what's on the roster and what's not, and if these guys can really help the roster. And I know you're all convinced the college coaches get it right. Every single decision they make is right, and that's just not the truth. That's not the truth. There are tons of college coaches out there getting fired, getting it wrong, and bringing in transfers that don't improve their roster, and they fall flat on their face, whether it be from a staff standpoint or the player not being committed and prepared to take part at that echelon or that level. Okay, so I'll talk about those at length, and anytime I bring it up, though, I get vilified. Rico, how dare you say something negative about a player or a school? You're just a guy in his living room. You're just a guy on a couch. What level of football did you play? I get all the questions. People always want me to validate myself and give my resume every time I talk. If you're unaware of who I am and what I do, move on, bro. This whole platform exists because of accuracy. The people anointed me. But if you really want to test your gangster, we can sit down and go bar for bar. And we can figure out how much you know about football compared to me. We can do it. I feel real comfortable. I know who I am. I know who's in my corner. I know who believes in me. It's not every day you get college coaches reaching out to you saying, hey, man, I love the way you move. I love what you do and how you say it. And appreciate you being honest. And appreciate you just keeping it real. I get that daily from college coaches. I appreciate them immensely. It's a true story, and it feels good. That being said, I'm ready to do this. I'm here to talk to you guys about the offensive linemen in the transfer portal. I got one PSA to put out. There is UFC, I think it's 312. UFC 312 is this weekend. We will have it on the Discord server. You can come join me. I will be providing commentary, analysis, gambling advice, and we do this for the MVPs. That is here on Patreon. Go over there. You can see all the podcasts. It's right here. You can see every podcast that I do. It shows up on Patreon as well. We post them. But we also have our results. And if you didn't know, last fight card, I went 9-3. No, 10-2. 9-2 overall. 9-2 overall. 5 out of 6 parlays hit. We dominated the last fight card. Dominated it. Ask MVPs. They turned $5 into $150. One guy turned $10 into $350. They were hitting plus 3,000. That's MVPs. I make a bunch of videos for every single UFC fight. Doesn't matter if it's a fight night or a numbered card. I got you. This next one on Saturday is a pay-per-view card. If you want to know who's going to win the fights, please go to Patreon. Search RicoKnows. Become a member. We do have over 5,500 members. If you don't know how to get there and you don't know what I'm talking about, in the details of this video, right now, the one you're watching on YouTube, in the details, there's a link down there, or there's a URL you can copy and paste, and it will get you over here. You might have to download a new app. Oh my God, Rico, what's Patreon? Dude, it's the one right next to OnlyFans, except I keep my clothes on, bro. I don't want to show you my feet. I'm just letting you know. Shout out to Kim Jones. She got amazing feet. I'm just saying. All right? So anyways, there's that. So there's Patreon. UFC, we do it year-round. If you didn't know, UFC has a fight every single Saturday. Just like college football, it's game day once a week. It's game day once a week for the UFC, okay? And we get that right more than you'll ever imagine. 83% on locks last year, 66% on money lines. It's the real deal. I am the real deal when it comes to UFC evaluation, analysis, predictions. I get it right. It's what I do. Shout out to the MVPs who believe in me. So we're going to be talking about the transfer portal. Remember, when we talk about the transfer portal from offensive linemen, there's two different lists, if you will. There is the enrolled list. These are the young men that are already enrolled at their new schools. And then there's the committed list. Sometimes, what's the difference? Well, committed players can change their mind because they're not enrolled yet, theoretically. And maybe they've been paid, maybe. But some of these guys are probably finishing up a semester at the other school. They haven't had to enroll. They could be graduate transfers and not need to take any classes. There's a number of reasons why they're not enrolled yet. It doesn't really matter. Once they say committed, 90% of the time, we can talk about it and it doesn't change. Especially this long. I waited a while to get to all the different transfer portal classes because I've been busy with the high school stuff that I haven't really dipped in too hard. So we're looking at commitments that were made back in December. They're pretty much stuck to them. The only thing I will tell you before we go in depth on this is these rankings are horrifically wrong. Horrifically wrong. You're looking at a 5-star transfer in Isaiah World. This is embarrassing how wrong they are about this transfer. Isaiah World is a decent player. He's a 2-time honorable mention Mountain West football player. You heard me right. He's honorable mention in the group of 5. But he's magically a 5-star, and he's amazing because he's going to be the starting tackle at Oregon. That's why. Not because of how good he is. It's because they assess if you're a starter at Oregon at one of the premier positions like left tackle, you must be 5 stars. They got to make you 5 stars. They missed on you so bad, they got to make you 5 stars. That's how terrible these websites are. So we only use these websites for pictures. I do not ever prescribe you to quote these or take these rankings as gospel. I think they're horrifically wrong, embarrassingly wrong, and they're doing their best to save face. So they just look at the star teams, the top teams, and go, wait, he's going to start there? He's 5 stars. That's how they do this. There's no other way to justify this whatsoever. It's embarrassing, okay? But I obviously go over these guys first. Now, while I'm talking, I do want to interact with you guys. I do want to thank you guys for being here. We will get to the chat. I will take your questions. Remember, questions should be directed or geared towards offensive linemen, okay? Towards offensive linemen, towards whatever we're talking about in this episode. Don't go off script, if you will, guys. And then what you need to do next is you need to understand that I'm going to go over enrolled guys then go to the chat. Let the chat build up. Don't repeat your question. Don't spam it, bro. Just go, and we're good. And I'll get to you, I promise. It just takes time. Now, when you talk about offensive linemen, you can't really quote a ton of stats. I hate when people talk about stats for an offensive lineman. You'll hear stuff like pancakes, pressures allowed, sacks allowed. You'll hear, I don't know. None of that really matters to me. It really doesn't. Now, there's this PFF grade thing that everybody quotes. It does matter, I guess, because that's what they're going to go by. They're going to trust some metric out there that somebody created out of clear air, like out of the thin blue sky. Is that what it is? That they said, oh, this is going to happen, and this is what we're going to do now. This is the new metric and the new gospel. I'm just going to tell you that I value starters. I value players that started for their team and the production that they helped enable. That's important to me, okay? That being said, your competition is very important. At what level you play is essentially important. And, how you perform. So being an all-conference guy really matters. It's voted on by the coaches and not just the media ones. I don't like the media all-conference guys. I like the coaches ones. And I'll tell you, team MVP, team captain, that kind of stuff matters to me. So that tells me you're a leader. So when I evaluate offensive linemen, it's very different from what you're going to hear. Especially like when somebody starts quoting a guard gave up no sacks for the year. Typically, guards are not dealing with defensive ends or edges unless it's a stunt, right? The DT stunt, the TE stunt. Like, unless you're seeing stunts that you want to give the guy credit for, a guard is not going to give up a sack to a defensive lineman, to a nose tackle, to a defensive tackle. He's just not. Those guys ain't getting many sacks. Maybe 2 or 3 all season. So you don't give them up to yourself. Like, you don't give them up when you're against them. And that's it. Dude got his 3 sacks against the FCS anyways. Or against the group of 5 when he's on a Power 5 team. In conference play, they don't get down like that. Tyler Barron, this guy they tell me who's amazing, in conference play, had like 2 sacks in the entire ACC. They keep telling me how amazing he is. I looked, he had 3 sacks against Florida A&M. Yeah, you went ham on FAMU and then did nothing all season long. Oh, Rico, he led the country in hurries, and hurries are important. Giving up hurries is important, but it's not how I evaluate an offensive lineman, for the most part. Okay, so the first guy I'm going to talk about here is Xavier Chaplin. Now, offensive linemen can be boring. Don't let it be boring, dude. These guys rock. These are grown-ass men. These will be first-round draft picks someday, or at least they'll be NFL draft picks. One thing I want to tell you about Xavier Chaplin here, he is going to Auburn. Virginia Tech to Auburn. I was thoroughly impressed with the tape when I went to watch it. Now, they're going to tell you he didn't give up a lot of sacks, or he gave 1 sack all year, or whatever it was. Yeah, Burrow, his quarterback is Kyron Drones, and they run the ball a lot. It's not like he's in pass pro all that much. So, the one thing I'll say is he's going to Auburn. They are terrible at running the ball. They wanted to go out and get offensive linemen that can enable them to run the ball, and they found one. And Xavier Chaplin, to me, is probably in the top 3 offensive linemen in the transfer portal. Top 3. I have him better than anybody who went to Oregon. I think he's number 1 personally. Just watching him, he's an NFL guy right now. He allowed 2 sacks all season in the ACC, but he's an NFL guy right now. And let me tell you that sacks allowed for tackles is a much bigger deal than sacks allowed by a guard, right? When you're a tackle and you're going up against the best edge rusher and you're a left tackle like this gentleman here, Xavier Chaplin is him. He is great. I was reading an interview from Aeneas Peebles. If you guys don't know, Aeneas Peebles is a very good pass rusher. And Aeneas Peebles just transferred from Duke to Virginia Tech this year. And Aeneas Peebles says when he transferred, there were 2 offensive linemen that he thoroughly thought of as the most elite offensive lineman that he's been up against. That was Graham Barton, first-round draft pick, and a kid named Monk, Jacob Monk, a fifth-round draft pick. And he said, oh, man, Xavier Chaplin is comparable to those 2 all day. So he's already an NFL-caliber player. Everybody thought he might declare, and here he is. He's going to go. Now, he was dealing with some injuries. He had a bone bruise at one point in his leg, and he had a shoulder injury. He didn't miss any games. He didn't miss any games at all. And seeing him going down to Auburn is a big deal. Now, Auburn thought they were going to be missing all their offensive linemen. But remember the JUCO rule. If you guys aren't aware, JUCO players got an extra year of eligibility. Not all JUCO players. if you were once a JUCO player and last year was your final year of eligibility, you now get an extra year. So you had to have been a senior and in your final year of eligibility, and if it was to run out, it didn't run out. So now you get an extra year. And why does that matter? Xavier Miller. Xavier Miller is a great, I shouldn't say great, he's a 2-year starter at Auburn on the right tackle side. So Miller starts at right tackle. They got to bring in Xavier Chaplin for the left tackle. Xavier Chaplin's amazing. Incredible athlete. 6'7", 323 pounds. The dude does everything right. And they also brought in another kid, and that's Mason Murphy down here. But Mason Murphy, he's either moving to guard or somebody's hitting the transfer portal because he's not starting. And if he is starting, that means Miller's leaving. But the thing is, I think Auburn, when they signed these guys in December, they didn't know the JUCO guys were going to get an extra year. So you have Mason Murphy, Xavier Chaplin. Now, Chaplin's going to be the starter no matter what, but I think Mason Murphy down there is a multi-year starter at USC, and he started many games and all this stuff. But I think it's one of those cases where they didn't know they were going to get back Miller. So we're going to figure that out. We're going to figure that out for Auburn. It's a good problem to have. But I'd imagine somebody's hitting the portal in the spring, or we got to move positions. But they have 3 really good tackles at Auburn right now, which is a rarity. You know, Auburn, I don't mean to shit on them or anything, but they haven't had a tackle drafted since 2020. And if you go look at all SEC, all conference teams, not a single all-SEC conference guy since 2018 at the tackle position. So they've had terrible tackles. And I'm telling you, Xavier Chaplin's a really good one. Now, is he one of the best tackles in the SEC? I don't know. I wouldn't go there. I just think he's one of the best tackles in the transfer portal, and there's a lot of good tackles. These tackles are enormous, man. If you're under 6'5", you're not a tackle. Not in today's college football. They just don't want to hear it. You got to be 6'7", 6'8", 6'6" at the least. Like the 6'5" guys, I mean, you're just the small school dude. They don't want to hear you. You're a guard. It's nuts. All right, so next guy is Phillip Fahamoe. Bro, don't ever ask me to pronounce these dudes' names at all. Okay? This guy right here, though, he's an NFL player. I'm watching the tape. I'm going, yo, that's a Samoan who's an NFL player. He's been at Washington State for 5 years, so he's extremely developed, right? His head coach, Jake Dickert, he leaves Washington State, gets hired at Wake Forest, and I'm going with you, coach. I'm going with you, which is awesome. Started 26 games in the last 3 years. You look at the tape, this kid's doing his thing. Doing his thing. Now, the only problem is this year he was injured to start the season. I was looking for him. I go back to watch film, guys, and I'm looking for him for the first 3 games. He's not there. He's not there. I'm like, where's this? I couldn't find his jersey number. You know, I watch film by jersey number. I'm like, where is this guy? So he missed the first 3 games to injury. Then he came back and he started every single game. Started the final 9. But he's a complete stud. He's the team captain, or a team captain, I should say. And he followed his offensive line coach, Jared Castor. And there's something to be said about these offensive line coaches because it's like they have a brotherhood. They have this thing where I can outdo all the NIL offers in the world. Because this young man, he had offers. LSU, Michigan, Nebraska. And he visited all 3. LSU, Michigan, Nebraska. Visit those 3 powerhouses and you pick Wake Forest. Man, that's incredible. That's incredible. Congratulations. I think if he goes through this season without an injury, I think he's a day 2 guy in the NFL draft. And I'm calling my shot now. And Connor, you let me know. You know, I got some guys. I got some regulars who watch my show every single day. They'll tell you, hey, Rico, you made this prediction years ago, and you were right. And I'll be like, oh, I didn't remember. Well, I probably won't remember this one, but I'm telling you, day 2 guy. Luke Petitbon is next. Shout out to Luke here. Sorry for scratching my face. It just itches all the time. Luke Petitbon, Wake Forest to Florida State. You guys know that I am a firm believer Florida State is terrible at assessing talent, and I think it's catching up with them. Now they hit lightning in a bottle, and it's hard to miss when you have guys that they had 2 years ago. They got all the right guys, but they've had all the wrong guys ever since. And I think they continue to do that. In my assessment, Florida State had the worst offensive line in the ACC last year. If I sat down and analyzed it starter for starter, the worst, which is crazy. And here we have Wake Forest starting center transferring in, and he's magically now one of the highest rated guys. Now, I challenge you to assess players before they committed to schools and tell me where they're at. These recruiting websites have no shame. They're so wrong. Now they go, well, he's going to be the starting center at Florida State. He's got to be really good. Okay. He's still the starting center from Wake Forest. And he's not bad. He's above average on tape. I watched him. I like the kid. Played over 1,500 snaps this year. Very good player. He's replacing a redshirt senior, Maurice Smith. It's not big shoes to fill. Everybody was terrible. But this is the type of signing where I look at you and I go, of all the centers in the entire transfer portal, you went lazy on me. And this is typical of Norvell lately. They just get lazy. They just recruit the nearest backup or the nearest kid that they know. Like, they're not willing to go deep in their pockets. They're not willing to compete for certain players. They're just not. They're getting a guy, and I'm sure they competed to get him, but it's not the way you think, okay? I mean that. Now, if you think he's a little light and all this, don't worry. Centers are small. But this one really underwhelms me. I hope he plays well. And you know I like small school guys who go to big schools, but Wake Forest is not a small school guy. It's just an average dude or above average guy, I guess. The kids say mid, but they mean that's terrible, right? So he's not mid. He's just he's the median. I don't know. He didn't impress me a whole lot. Good luck to Florida State with their offensive line. Corey Robinson leaving Georgia Tech, going to Arkansas. For about 3 years now, I've told you guys the same thing over and over and over again. And that is, I think Arkansas just signs the wrong players. Every time there's a player in the transfer portal that I'll like check mark them. Well, on my database, I have a database, if you didn't know. And I'll put a note in there like, I don't know, a red flag. Or some type of marker, like somebody who didn't meet expectations or no longer a starter. Whatever. Something. That's Corey Robinson, bro. The recruiting websites, they go out here, they give him a 4th star. They increased his star to 4. He's going to Arkansas. He's in the SEC. You don't know what you're talking about, Rico. Man, I've been watching Corey Robinson since his days at Roswell. Shout out to him. I don't want to say the quarterback's name. He passed away his junior year in high school. But this kid was 6'5", 265. He's really filled out over the last couple of years. But I remember when he went to Kansas and he redshirted and he didn't play at Kansas. Then he transfers over. And he started some games. And if you read the stat line, it says he didn't allow a sack all season. Yeah. It's not hard, man. Your quarterback's Haynes King. Haynes King doesn't get sacked. Haynes King was sacked 6 times all year. And you didn't start all year. Corey Robinson, well, I don't know how they want to frame this or talk about it, but he lost his starting job to a freshman, to Ethan McKinney. Ethan McKinney showed up and took your lunch money, bro. Took it. Freshman All-American, blah, blah, blah. Ethan McKinney is him. Straight upgrade at that same position. And if you go check the PFF ratings, of course, his pass blocking rating is really high. How often did Georgia Tech throw the ball? How often do they pass? That's a run-oriented team. Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, just running the ball all day long. And you want to know his run grade for PFF? His run grade is 56.33. Go look up other run PFF scores. Go, just Google it, bro. You won't find anyone under 60. Corey Robinson is. I'm unimpressed with this signing. I think it's terrible. Shout out to him. He gets another chance to be great. And I'm sure the coaching staff loves you and talked you into it and all this stuff. But I'm not sold, man. I'm not sold. He's a left tackle in the transfer portal, and he's a starter, and he's probably better than what Arkansas has coming up through the ranks and on their bench. But to increase his ranking is nuts. It's actually embarrassing that they did that. They're just trying to admit that they missed when he coming out of high school. Mason Murphy, like I said, Mason Murphy going from USC to Auburn. It's his final year of eligibility, and I just don't see where he starts unless he moves to guard. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. He's played at guard if needed. He has played at guard. I think he's the one who can move to right guard. He started 5 games at right guard. But he's more of a tackle. Now, if he came over knowing that he's going to do that, shout out to him. This is a young man who started 22 games at USC, missed the whole season due to an injury. He had a fractured left foot that he had to get surgery on. And then in 2022, he only started 3 games. But he's really coming to his own. I think he's a good player. It is what it is, man. He didn't do him as dirty as some of the others. I'll talk about USC offensive linemen all hitting the transfer portal in line to the coaching staff. But Mason Murphy, it just looks like he committed to Auburn when Auburn thought they were losing their right tackle. And then they got him back. They got Miller back. And now, what do they need Mason Murphy for? But he's already there. So unless you're just so committed and you got paid healthily, like if you got paid healthy, then get to work, bro. Then you got to transition and do your thing. Shout out to TikTok, by the way. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to interact and ask me questions, go to YouTube, put it in the chat, and I'll answer. I don't answer the chat over here, though. Thank you. All right. Micah Pettus. Micah Pettus. Micah Pettus. Pettus. You know, I want to mispronounce every name I see. I've been watching these brain rot words on TikTok. Skibbity bee, toilet, I don't know, Riz. And there's a girl behind you. Mom, there's a girl behind. I'm learning all these phrases, bro. I'm learning all these phrases. Anyways, here's Micah Pettus. He had to learn how to become a starter. I think this is a good signing for Florida State. You get a guy who's 6'7", 350. He's enormous. And you win the battle for him and you bid for him. I just hope you pick the right player to pay. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a young man. He's an Alabama kid. So he's from Alabama, going closer to home, kind of, sort of. Is he going closer to home? How close is Ole Miss to, I don't know, 29 starts while at Ole Miss. Eventually getting there. Started at right tackle, has decent PFF grades. Let me tell you what he doesn't have, though. The part that you need to do is watch the film. I don't know if defensive coordinators identified him as a weak link, but when I was watching the film, the amount of stunts, blitzes, and just pressure that they directed at his side, at him, is phenomenal. Homie's given up double-digit hurries and pressures on the season. Double-digit hurries and pressures, and he commits penalties all day long. I counted 7. Dude, he commits penalties. But his run blocking is essentially better than anything Florida State had last year. Florida State had no running game. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they recruited and signed out of the transfer portal nothing but backup running backs. But they literally are terrible at run blocking, and he's better than everybody at Florida State run blocking wise. I will say that. So I'm really impressed with him. And then we'll get to Kentucky. Here we go. Alex Wollschlaeger. Alex is leaving Bowling Green, going to Kentucky. Got to be careful with this one. Shout out to Alex, 6'7", 305. You look at here. Kentucky got 2 bookend tackles. They got Alex and Shiyazh Pete. And I didn't expect them to get Pete, by the way. I thought Pete was going to Vanderbilt. It's a whole nother conversation. But back-to-back, kind of low-budget guys. And when I say low budget, I think you can pay group of 5 guys less and get them to come to the team. I know. I shouldn't say I think. I know. And you can pay FCS players even less. So when you see a team in the Power 4 in the SEC and they're signing players from the group of 5 teams and they're signing players from FCS teams, that means they're bargain shopping, bro. They're at Goodwill and they're just picking out used players and used stuff, but they're not trying to get the shiny shit. They're not trying to get the best players. They're just trying to get something that's suitable, good enough. And here you have a guy like Alex who's pretty damn studly. Alex is a 5-year guy. He's been at Bowling Green for 5 years. So he's an adult, right? He's a starting right tackle at Bowling Green. And he was an all-conference guy. First team All-MAC. Complete stud. It's not hard to go beat everybody. It's not hard to beat everybody in the MAC. Remember, you don't have to block very long. They're throwing to a tight end who's better than anyone. The MAC has elite players in certain skill groups, and Bowling Green had really good ones. So you look really good when you're doing your thing. Now, his PFF score is like 36th in the whole country. Amazing. The fact that he had offers from Florida State, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Arkansas, Iowa State, and he picked Kentucky. Shout out to him. I think it's a good thing to do. They need you. They needed you, and they missed on some other recruits. Remember, Kentucky was offering a bunch of guys, and these are the guys that settled with them, and they had to rock with what they got. Now, for a number of years, Kentucky's offensive line has been terrible. Going all the way back to Will Levis, and everybody telling me they couldn't find anyone to block. I remember I was watching a film, and a linebacker, who was the linebacker? A troubled linebacker for Florida, just walked up and tossed one of these Kentucky linemen. Tossed him like 4 yards with one arm. He just forearm shivered him. Almost like, what was that hump move that Reggie White used to do? It was crazy, bro. I was like, what the hell? Who's that guy? He don't have dense muscles. That dude's got low density. Nonetheless, good job finding tackles. Now let's talk about this boy Pete, bro. So a couple years ago, New Mexico State won 10 games. They had a great quarterback, Diego Pavia. They had a loaded team, and they won 10 games. And then everybody got hired and moved over to Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt said, yo, I got an SEC defense. Can you bring over that 10-win offense, and let's see what happens? So they hired the offensive coordinator. They get Jerry Kill to come in as an analyst. They go and get Diego. They get Eli Stowers. They go and get a bunch of players. But the players that they didn't get, New Mexico State kept their offensive line intact. They stayed at New Mexico State. These offensive linemen were like, cool, bro, we're going to play for a terrible coach. Shout out to Tony, Mr. Sanchez. And they stayed, and when you go and watch the film for New Mexico State, now, nobody's watched more New Mexico State football than me. Nobody. Right? I've watched every single game for, I don't know, a very long time. I live stream New Mexico State football games. We bet on New Mexico State football games, and we've lost our ass. And we've won a ton of money, and we've lost, and we won. But the one thing you need to do when you go turn on the tape is go look for number 71. He's the left tackle. He blocks the blind side. He blocks the sun. This is a kid coming out of Montana. Been a 3-year starter at left tackle. 3-year starter. Now, he went on a visit to Vanderbilt. And you thought right away, he's going to Vanderbilt. And he didn't go to Vanderbilt. That's so crazy. Michigan and Nebraska also offered this guy. And you're going to keep hearing the same team names. Michigan, Nebraska. These same teams are all trying to revamp their offensive line with every transfer portal player. And after a while, I was looking at the transfer portal of the players that are currently available. I don't see a lot of good ones. And I think I made a video about it. And somebody was asking me, Rico, why aren't there so many good players? Dude, all these good offensive linemen were signed immediately. You look at the dates on these guys, most of them are from December. They were signed as soon as the portal opened and closed. They were done within 48 hours. Tampering galore. People were ready. And here you have a guy who was highly coveted by all those amazing teams. And Kentucky needs to replace starters, and they got about 3 of them. They've rebuilt their offensive line with the transfer portal. Remember, they also got a guy named Wallace Umbra. He's going to come up. Unamba. UNABMA. He's good. Wallace. I like Wallace. 6'4", 330 offensive lineman. Yeah, they're just building with what they got, bro. I really like these guys. They brought in, who else did they bring in? Western Kentucky? Was it Western Kentucky? Or Eastern Kentucky? I don't remember. They brought in a directional Kentucky, the center. He started for 2 years. Kentucky's just Legoed their entire offensive line, and it's cool, and it starts with these 2 tackles. Very good ones. Next guy, Connor Moore. I got to be honest. Let me explain this. So last year, some of the better offensive linemen left Montana State, and they transferred to Cal, and they transferred to some other schools. And I wrote them all down. I had a database for them, and I talked about them. If you go back to last year's offensive lineman podcast, you'll find me talking about these guys. And I'm talking about them glowingly. Saying, hey, man, they're FCS All-Americans. They're FCS studs. And they're going to be great and all this stuff. And then they went to Cal, and Cal had one of the worst offensive lines you've ever seen in your life. And dude sucked. Now, I don't know if it's the coaches or what, but it's one of those things that was in the back of my mind, and I regret it because I regret not taking it seriously. Because what that told me was maybe Montana State's offensive line isn't that good. Maybe they're byproducts of amazing running backs and a good running quarterback and maybe a good scheme. I don't know. So I had these doubts about the Montana State offensive line. I shouldn't say Montana State. Shout out to the Grizzlies. And then they get in the national title game, undefeated national title game, and I picked them to beat North Dakota State. But I knew that their offensive line was missing players that it shouldn't be missing. They should have been there. And I knew that they weren't very good. The guys that left weren't very good, so that means the guys that are there aren't very good. And I just... I had a hard time pulling that trigger, and I blew it, and I regret it, because I knew that North Dakota State isn't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just knew that Montana State isn't their offensive line isn't good. I say all that to tell you that Connor Moore is the best offensive lineman from that team. So Connor Moore, he's from Ohio. So he's an Ohio native. He took trips to Michigan State, Ohio State, Cincinnati. This is a bona fide recruiting miss by all the FBS schools, right? Coming out of high school, he wanted to go. But nobody was looking at him. So he ended up going the FCS route. He redshirts his first year, but everybody saw it. They're like, yo, that dude is nice. He only played in 4 games, and the starters knew he's going to be a starter. He's better than what we have. They let him keep his red shirt, and then he only played 1 year, and he's a FCS All-American, and he's great. So this is a guy. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a starter. I do. He's young. He's a stud. Michigan State loves guys like this. They build guys like this. So he fits right in. I just hope he was the best one out of all those crummy dudes who transferred and didn't amount to shit. I hope I'm not wrong. Because I felt this way about Montana State offensive linemen last year, and none of them measured up. And I'm putting my money where my mouth is, right? Like I'm sitting here and I'm saying this kid's going to be great. I already put it on the list. I already put it out there, one of my hidden gem lists and all this. He better not let me down. I'm going to go looking for him. No, I'm just joking. I just pray he's right. And you guys know I don't pray. Speaking of praying, what up, Jordan White? Jordan White, DeMatha Catholic, Maryland. Young man, coming out of high school. Jordan White went to West Virginia. Couldn't get on the field. Couldn't get on the field at West Virginia. Transfers to Liberty, gets on the field. This is a starting center. Very good player. I think he might be the best player on Vanderbilt's offensive line next year. I really do. Michigan, Miami, South Carolina, all offered, all interested in Jordan White, and he's choosing to go to Vanderbilt. Shout out to him. I hope he understands the Vanderbilt degree is pretty damn special. But this was a guy, second-team all-conference last year, or the year before, and then last year, first-team all-conference. Stud. I really like him a lot. 3 offensive linemen at Liberty were all-conference, which really bugs me because I thought Jacksonville State's offensive line was the most impressive if you looked at the numbers they were putting up with all their great players. And Trey Stewart and who was that? Purdy. Not Purdy. Who was the quarterback? Ty. What was his name, bro? Look at that. How fast I forget, bro. I know we bet on him every single week. But Jordan White, complete stud. Vanderbilt, you got a stud. I'm going to talk about my last guy, Sam Pendleton. Then I'm going to go to the chat. And then I'll hit the committed players. But this is the last guy I'm going to mention on this list. We'll hit all these other guys in episode number 2. That's the plan. But we're going to talk about Sam Pendleton here. Going from Notre Dame to Tennessee. Talk about tampering. Homie was in the portal less than 48 hours before it was committed and done. Shout out to him. So this is a young man from North Carolina. When he was in high school, he spent junior day at Tennessee. He wanted to go to Tennessee. He was all over it. And then at the last second, he flips. He goes to Notre Dame. Now, at Notre Dame, he's been there for a little bit. He was starting at guard. And then something went wrong here. And I don't know how to explain this to you guys. But people got injured at Notre Dame this year. And when others came off the bench, they played better. Out of the fall, Sam Pendleton won the guard job. He won the starting job over Rocco Spindler. Rocco Spindler's a senior. He pushes Rocco to the bench. So you got this young kid better than you. A young kid is a redshirt freshman. This guy's got 3 years of eligibility left, okay? So you got a guy as a redshirt freshman, and he's starting over you. And then after about like 7 games, Billy comes back. Billy Sherratt, he's a really good player. So Billy comes back. He's going to be the starter. And now you push Sam Pendleton back to the bench, and you let Rocco stay in the starting lineup. And I'm watching all these moves happen, and I'm talking – I think I did a big breakdown of this on one of the pre-national championship videos when I was talking to all the gamblers on Patreon, and I was telling the MVPs, yo, this is what's going to happen. Notre Dame's going to lose because their offensive line is taped together with a bunch of backups who overperform and all this stuff. And it was one of these things where Sam Pendleton, you pushed him to the bench, and you probably shouldn't have. But they also have really good starters. They have really good guys in place. They're all sophomores and juniors. The depth at Notre Dame is really good on the offensive line. So this young man says, you know what, I'm not here to sit on the bench. I'm out of here. And he goes and hits the portal. He probably got paid a ton of money. And shout out to him. Tennessee losing 3 starters. They need this young man. They're going to use him. They're going to do well. They have Wendell Moe coming in from Arizona. That's the transfer. I'll talk about him in the next episode. I believe there he is. Wendell Moe down here. He's coming in. But Sam Pendleton's very good. We need to replace Cooper Mays, Spraggins, things like that. So shout out to Sam Pendleton. I just think it's a little shady that homie jumped in the portal and was done and signed within 48 hours. It's crazy, bro. You got to take phone calls from everybody, right? Theoretically, you're not taking phone calls from everybody? Am I the only one who's like, yo, I'm going to take phone calls from everybody? All right, I'm going to go to the chat now, and then we'll go to the committed guys. Want to make sure I got to talk to you guys about these guys, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. I want to talk about some of these things. All right, let me go to the chat. Sorry about that. I'm sitting a little close to the cam tonight. It is what it is. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it, everybody. Yo, I got to interact here. Interact. Best position on the field today. What up, Evan Kramer? Evan Kramer, loving offensive lineman, I guess. We're here for the knowledge bits, not the fits. Word. This man got all the sayings. Mike, what up, Big Mike? Big Mike. Mike is a Nebraska homer. Heads up, MVPs, and everybody watching the show right now. You guys got to know what you're dealing with. Mike can never be taken serious. Let's see what he has to say. I'm happy with Rocco Spindler. Okay. Picked up in the portal. No penalties last season, I believe. Go Big Red. Yeah, no penalties. He wasn't a starter the whole year. He is a guy who lost his starting job to better, younger players. But if you're happy with him, more power to you. You'll need to understand, or now you'll know why he's not being talked about in this episode in depth. And that's because he's ranked a lot lower. And that might surprise some of you guys. Pat Coogan down here, Rocco Spindler, guys who you thought were starters at Notre Dame, they really weren't. They were backups who got an opportunity and played really well, right? Or you became a backup. Pat was a backup, and then he became a starter and gives good pep talks and all that stuff. So these two being, getting into the portal late, being coveted by coaches because there weren't a lot of good offensive linemen left. They're the best of the rest, but careful. Congratulations to Nebraska fans if you think you got a guy. De uno más. One more. What does he say? Auburn with all these big portal moves, yet Vegas has their win total at 5.5. Well, remember, you're not making moves in a vacuum. Other teams are making moves. You probably don't return the same production others return. You're only as good as your last quarterback. Does your quarterback look like he can win more than 5 games? Have you looked at your schedule and who you play against and when you play them, at home or on the road? I do a lot of futures bets. I do futures bets for every single team in America, and I can't accurately do them until after spring football, to be honest. And I don't know if 5.5 is too much or too little. Even with a transfer portal move where I'm really impressed with a certain player or certain additions or subtractions, that doesn't move me at all. I have to sit down and evaluate entire position groups before I can accurately predict win totals. Now, my assessment of position groups was over 60% accurate as far as wins go against the spread. Shout out to the MVPs who know this. The talent chart was more accurate than anything I could have ever predicted. I was so proud of it that I'm going to do it just as well this year, and if not even better. And it's just one of those things where I was evaluating teams and telling you how good they were, and I was pretty damn accurate when you look at it. Some people might look at it and go, oh no, you were wrong about this team or that team. Bro, collectively, I assessed every single team in the preseason and then rated all their position groups, and it was the most accurate thing you could ever come up with. It was amazing. I was so proud of myself for that. So I'll tell you that Auburn, when I evaluate them, they're going to be very improved in certain position groups, but that doesn't mean anything if you're playing against teams that are better than you in those position groups. If you're playing against teams that are better than you, you're not going to win more. You're just not. You can be a very good team and still not win, right? So it's just the reality of the situation. That happens to a lot of teams. There's teams that I believe in that I think are talented, and they still can't get over the hump and win all their games. They just can't. North Carolina is a prime example last year. Rico, I'm going to come back in an hour when I can watch 3X, but love the show, dropping a like. Well, talking comics, that's not very good. You should only watch this at 1.5, 2.0 max. 2.0 max, you can't understand me at 3X. You don't get anything. You don't retain anything. You need to sit here and learn. You crack me up when you get to talking shit, man. You've clearly had a lot of practice. A lot of practice. Oh, because I interact with people. You want to hear me go back and forth and talk smack with people. Okay. Well, I try to do my thing. I think I talked to Kim the other day. I told her I have like a couple sayings that I need to memorize because I want to use them the next time on live, and then I forget them. And they're hilarious and they're great, but I just forget them. I'll get to them when I can. Pettus is a holding call waiting to happen. He needs to move to guard. There's no guard 6'7", bro. That's not happening. 6'7", 6'8". Dude's not moving to guard. That's a terrible decision. He needs to stop holding. Thoughts on the new O-line coach at Ohio State from Virginia Tech. So, the move happened today, Magic. Congratulations to Ohio State trying to find backfills, if you will. They're not going to find backfills. They're not going to find equivalent backfills. Let me explain something to you guys. And I'm going to say this in this episode. There's only 29 people watching right now. There's only like a handful of people on TikTok watching. But I want to explain something to you guys. There's a ratio you need to win the national title. In the last 30 years, only 4 teams, I think it's 3 or 4 teams, have won the national title without the continuity ratio. So the continuity ratio is you need your returning head coach, your returning offensive coordinator, your returning defensive coordinator, and your returning quarterback. Those are your 4 that you need. Now, of those 4, you need 3 out of the 4. Ohio State does not have 3 out of the 4. It doesn't matter who they get. It doesn't matter who they replace or who they bring in. They don't have 3 out of the 4. They won't win the national title. They're not even in discussion for it. I want you to think of the teams that have that continuity at offense and defensive coordinator, at starting quarterback and head coach. Those teams are going to win the national title. They're going to be competitive for it. This is why Georgia has not been in the national title game for the last 2 years. When they lost Monken, an offensive coordinator, and they lost Stetson Bennett because of graduation, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter. You don't have that ratio, you're out. It's math. It's probability. I've studied this for 30 years. So go back 30 years and study every team. You'll have the Cam Newton team, the Jameis Winston team, the LSU team, and then last year's Ohio State team. Those are the 4 teams that didn't have the continuity ratio. And a lot of that had to do with Ohio State just upgraded their offensive coordinator to Chip Kelly, upgraded their quarterback position. But most teams need that continuity to get the national championship. How many players you have starting on defense returning doesn't matter. How many offensive players you have returning doesn't matter. Returning production doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is those 4 positions. You need 3 out of those 4. And that's that. So you can stop talking about Ohio State for national title. It's not a thing. They'll win a bunch of games. They'll be in the playoffs, whatever it is, but they will not be there at the end. The teams with continuity in those position groups will. And there's a number of reasons why, and I don't want to go in depth on it because it's just a long, boring conversation, and I haven't figured out a way to refine it to make it a shorter, concise conversation. But your offense and defensive coordinators need to be in position for multiple years in your conference because they will learn the other offense and defensive coordinators within the conference, and they'll learn their tendencies, and they'll learn what they call on third and short or down and distance and the way they play. So when you get a new offense or defensive coordinator in the conference or a new position coach in the conference, they have to learn the opposition, and they have to learn what they do and how they do it, and it takes years to learn that. You can study it all you want, but it's just an understanding when you've been going at each other for a couple years. So something to ponder. It's just something I've never really made a video about, but I'm just letting you know. Okay. Micah made a statement today. It feels like a rest for me. I want to show them how good I can play. Glad you're bringing him up. Yeah, bro. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Patrick Snipes, he's trending to left guard at Florida State. Okay, sweet. You know, you guys, homers, you guys who study your teams really well individually, I just ask that you give me the tidbits of information you got, but you guys got to understand that if you studied the opposition as hard as you study your own team, you'd understand why you guys don't win games. That's the reality. Like every time I talk to a team and they're excited about all their players, and like Colorado's notorious for this, just all the fans telling me how good their team is and everything. It's like, did you study the opposition? Did you study who you're going up against? No? They're all great. Everybody's great. Everybody's improved. Everybody's making their team better. Nobody had a bad day. Every coach is going to brag about his recruiting class. It's the best they've ever had. Every coach can talk about their transfer portal class. We brought in some dogs. Nobody's ever gone to the podium, the press conference, and been like, yo, we lost our ass. We're terrible. We're going to be a lot worse this year than we were last year. Nobody's doing that. It's always the best, bro. You know, I learned this in the Army. I'd had soldiers, every soldier I met, their last unit was the best unit they'd ever been in. Their last unit was the best unit they ever. But last unit, we used to do this. We used to do that. Oh, man, it was great. We used to do it. I'm like, man, I wonder when you leave here if you're going to be bragging about us. Because you're annoying. You know, there's two things I learned is two things everybody hates is everybody hates change and they hate the way things are. That's everybody. Everybody hates change and the way things are. Go figure. Just letting you know. Shout out to you Florida State fans. Good luck. I promise you won't play guard. Guaranteed Ole Miss wanted him to move to guard and he wouldn't. Word. I would have moved him to defensive tackle. Thoughts on OSU's new offensive line coach from Virginia Tech? Yeah, like I said, it's cool. He's a good player. He's a good guy. He's a good coach. He had a lot of good players that he developed. You see them here. Virginia Tech transfers are everywhere. Braelin's going to be coming up here on this list. Let me see. Braelin going to LSU, right? Braelin Moore going to good players. And he knows what he's doing, but it won't matter. It won't matter. Ohio State doesn't have the continuity now in the coaching staff to be what they want to be. Great national title. That happens. You got to line that up, though. You got to hold your guys in position for extended periods of time. Man, I don't know. I have info towards the opposite. We signed a ton of offensive linemen, so he always headed to guard. Left guard was more in tune with what we have. There you go. Patrick Snipes. If he willingly moved to guard, Ole Miss would have paid to keep him. They parted ways because he wouldn't. I would part ways because he's a holding thing. Shout out to you, Rico. Rico? Yeah, why you drop my full name? Fear Metro? My light just started flashing, bro. Excuse me, I just installed a ceiling fan and it just started flashing like that. The wiring might be wrong with this ceiling fan. Shout out to my dad, man. He and I wired this one together. That's a little frightening. We know what we're doing. Yo, the whole thing just went dead. This really just happened. I don't know what's going on. It's not spinning anymore. There we go. Oh, goodness. A little frightening. If he's willing to move, shout out to me. Thank you so much, Fear Metro. I think Ole Miss has other options. Okay. Borderline guys refuse to do shit, leave the SEC. That's not what they're doing. They're not leaving the SEC. Relax, bro. They're going to the highest bidder. They're not leaving the SEC. How do you feel about UNC's offensive line? Logan, I haven't had a chance to look at entire position groups. I've been assessing transfers, and that doesn't equate to me sitting down thinking about entire offensive lines. So North Carolina specifically, I know that they have a really good transfer coming in King, right? He should be down here. Let's see. Yeah, Daniel King coming in. I like Daniel King. Started 40 games at Troy. Good player. But assessing the entire group, well, they just lost Howard Sampson, and I don't know where else they're going with that. I have not sat down and looked at all the returning players. for each group on any team. So how do I feel about it? I don't feel about it. Jordan White wants to get a Vandy degree and play with the superstar Diego Pavia. I don't blame him, bro. I hope he gets some tail while he's there. I hope he gets some skibbity-dee, whatever the kids say. Shout out to them, bro. Talking offensive line still, do you think Florida State got the right offensive line coach? I'm skeptical. Have not assessed the coaching decisions at Florida State. Haven't assessed it. Use the talent chart a good amount of times this year. Legend MVP here. Shout out to Patrick Snipes. Yes, MVPs used the talent chart a good amount of times throughout the season and made money and got it right. Our positional group chart was one of the best laid out programs I've ever seen. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. I try. My position group chart, yeah, I'm going to make another one. Just going to wait for the spring and then we'll hit it. Thoughts on offensive lineman Minnesota brought in? Easton, I'm probably not going to talk about them. I only talk about the kid that left Minnesota. The ones they've gained, I will talk about it in future episodes. I apologize. It's not in this episode. So I haven't really thought about them. So I've only put in effort into the players I'm going to talk about for this episode, and then I'll go to defensive linemen next episode, and I'll come back for the next 25 offensive linemen the next time around, and maybe I'll think about a Minnesota kid then. This is how I stay organized. I go over 25 players at a time in each position group, and I go in depth on each one. And so this enables me to go wave tops on every single transfer and then do the next wave transfers. And I'll probably get 6 episodes. So that enables me to look at the top 150 players at each position group. And hopefully I hit some Minnesota guys on those future episodes. So you'll know what I think of them. If you're looking for me breaking down Minnesota's entire offensive line, that will happen in the summer, probably June, July timeframe. I will talk about every single offensive line in America in one episode. I'll talk about all the offenses, and I will give them a rating, a 1 to 10 rating. You'll get to see the chart. If you want to know what I thought last year, you can go look at that chart, and you'll get a feel for how I did it. It's on the live tab here on YouTube. You just click live, scroll down, and you're good. I get it. I'm just going off what coaches are saying. Boom. Yeah, you guys start arguing in my chat, bro. Take that shit somewhere else. These are my favorite streams and videos on YouTube. Thank you, Patrick. So much content in depth. Love it. Keep up the... Hey, man, just let it play, bro. Just let it play. I'm assuming the Minnesota transfer is Phillip Daniels. It is. It is. I'll be talking about him here shortly, Easton. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoy it. Okay. Guys, I'm going to get to the committed list. I'm going to go down it. Please get your questions, comments, concerns all in the chat, and I will get back to it before the show ends. I'm just going to go down these guys, and then we'll get to it, okay? Sweet. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys again. All right, let's go back to the show. So, offensive linemen. Now, these are the guys that are committed, and like I told you, I don't agree with these rankings at all. They're complete and utter horseshit, and here we have a guy in Isaiah World, who isn't bad. He's pretty good, but please understand that he's not this good. Not even remotely this good. He's 6'8", 310 pounds. This is a guy that is back-to-back honorable mention in the Mountain West. And now he's magically the greatest offensive lineman in the portal. There's other guys that are all conference, in other group of 5 conferences, and all ACC, all this. But the honorable mention guy in the Mountain West on a team that had a running quarterback. Oh, he didn't give him any sacks. Well, have you watched the way they play at Nevada? And now he's magically the best offensive. No, he's not just the best offensive lineman. He's the best transfer portal player. They have him number 1 overall. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that they found out 24/7 in these boys. They found out he got paid a ton of money to go to Oregon. His price tag was so high that A&M was like, yo, that's too much. A&M said, we're going to get back Trezon. We don't want to pay this kid this much. But when you hear about the teams that were offering him, it's A&M, it's Nebraska, and then Oregon. And for me, I can't get down with it, man. He's going to be the starter. And they're going to talk like he's great. But remember this. He was the 23rd best player in the portal when he entered the transfer portal. 24/7 Sports had him 23rd. He commits to Oregon. They move him up to number 1. They did the same thing with Dylan Thieneman, who I love. Dylan Thieneman, they had him ranked, what did they have Dylan? 73rd. And then they moved Dylan Thieneman to 10th when he went to Oregon. Malik Benson. They already know Malik Benson can't play football. Everybody knows Malik Benson is not any good. Number 1 JUCO player, went to Auburn or went to Alabama, couldn't play. Transferred to Florida State, couldn't play. Now he's transferring to Oregon. He goes from 240th to 97th ranked among transfers. It's the Oregon effect. And then you get a guy like Micah Hughes, the running back from Tulane, who's amazing, and they have him ranked 131st. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Like, how are you guys coming up with these rankings? They're panicking, bro. You want me to give you guys a ranking? I'm going to give you guys a ranking. Out of high school, Isaiah World was the 211th best player in his class. He was a 3-star player. He had offers from Arizona, Arizona State, and he chose to go to Nevada because he didn't want to sit the bench. And he went to Nevada, and he's been there the whole time. And the recruiting websites made him number 211 out of high school. And now they're so embarrassed, and they're trying to overcorrect, and they make him the number 1 player in the transfer portal, and it's just terrible. He's just not. Just not. Maybe they got word from an NFL scout telling them he's going to be a first-round draft pick, and that's why they're doing this, so they can say they got it right, and they got an NFL draft pick identified. That's the type of shit they're doing here. But if I was sitting here and I was picking these offensive linemen, Isaiah World is not in my top. He really isn't in my top 10. I put him in the top 10 on my list on Twitter, but he's not. He's not. Congratulations. And then we have Howard Sampson. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here with Howard Sampson. I don't know. He has 2 years of eligibility left. He's enormous. This is a Texas kid. It is a Texas kid. He started his career at North Texas. I watched him. North Texas, 2 games. He played in 2 games in North Texas. Then he redshirted. Then the next year, he played in 2 more games. And then he hit the transfer portal. And he went to North Carolina. I don't know what that's about. He played in 87 snaps at North Texas. Howard Sampson, 87 snaps. And then he goes to North Carolina and he starts all 12 games. All 12 games. Okay, I guess North Texas missed. I guess everybody missed. But North Carolina made him an amazing player. And now we've identified this guy as being everything. Honorable mention, all ACC, by the way. Honorable mention, all ACC. Honorable mention, all Mountain West. What are we doing? This is silly. Now, he was coming back home. He's coming back to Texas. And he was going to go to TCU. I thought he was going to go to TCU. He took a visit. TCU wanted him. That looked like a good signing to me. TCU misses on this kid. And TCU needs a tackle. So TCU, if you can see here, they went ahead and signed Rashid Jackson. 6'7", 320. Incarnate word. Been there for 2 years. Rashid Jackson is a young man who's actually from Ohio, and he transferred to Texas for his senior year of high school football. Guess where he went to school? Duncanville. All you bullshitters who keep telling me Texas football doesn't recruit. Texas football doesn't. Man, Myson Johnson Cook, the starting running back at DeSoto, played his freshman year in Illinois. And here we have Rashid Jackson, an offensive lineman from Ohio, transfer to Duncanville for his senior year. Oh, we don't recruit. We don't recruit. And it didn't work out for him because he ended up going the FCS route. But now he's going to TCU. So TCU missed on a player. They missed on Howard Sampson. So how good is Howard Sampson? Well, I don't know, man. He started for the first time in his life this year, and he played well. But how hard is it to play well when your running back is Omarion Hampton and he just rips off runs? You gonna look good? I don't know what we're doing here. And then shout out to Texas Tech, because Texas Tech, do you guys know the story about Texas Tech? Do you know who Cody Campbell is? First thing I want to say is do not go to Twitter and search Cody Campbell. I went to Twitter and searched Cody Campbell. You got to do Cody Campbell, Cody C64. Do not do Cody Campbell and start scrolling. You're going to see a whole lot of dick, bro. I'm just letting you know. Cody Campbell apparently is a male porn star, and the man is very rarely wearing clothes. I was like, yo, what is going on? I'm looking for the billionaire. The billionaire. Okay, I'm going to try to explain to you guys who Cody Campbell is and what happened here and why everybody's excited about Texas Tech. I've already put this in a video before, but here it is, okay? Last year, Cody Campbell was complaining about Texas Tech and how they don't play well. Texas Tech doesn't play well. They're making mistakes. They're doing whatever. And he's complaining. Now, he's an alumni. I think he played football at Texas Tech. And this man is a billionaire. And he's complaining on Twitter. And somebody wrote to him and said, hey, stop complaining, bro. Buy us a damn O-line. Hey, bro, why don't you buy us an offensive line? And his response was, I will. That's the most famous response ever. He wrote back and said, I will. Coldest move in the game. A regular-ass fan was pressing him and said, what are you going to? He said, I will. And ever since he said that, that's on T-shirts. So if you see a bunch of T-shirts from Texas Tech and everybody says, I will, they're just quoting Cody Campbell here. Cody C64. Let's be very specific. Now, you guys can't read all these quotes. It's too small. But what you need to know is Cody Campbell gave all the money in the world to Texas Tech for their NIL. And that's why they're winning in the transfer portal. And they got big money to spend. And the big money they're spending is on offensive linemen. And apparently, one of those guys was Howard Sampson. So they went out and got themselves a left tackle. How good is he? I don't know. But he did start every game for North Carolina last year, and he's highly coveted, and obviously the recruiting websites gave him an extra star. I see a guy who was at North Texas for 2 years and never got on the field. That's what I see. You might see a starter, and he might turn into something great. If you look at these two guys up top right here, the way they're ranking these guys, I don't agree with these at all. I don't think these guys are nearly as good as these other two guys right here. Patrick and Josh Thompson, Patrick Kutas and Josh, these two guys, to me, are much better. Much better. Because they're actually, remember, production versus potential, I prefer production. 100%. So Patrick leaving Arkansas, going to Ole Miss, shout out to him. Love this young man. I shouldn't say love. I don't know him. But he's got 2 years of eligibility left. I'm going to tell you that he's the type of dude that, I remember what I wanted to say now. He's the type of dude that you got to be happy that he's on your team. But it's not cool, man. It's not cool. So he was starting games back in 2023. And then this year he was getting hurt. So he was hurt. He missed the first 7 games of the season. So he went and sat down with the coaching staff. And, you go tell Sam Pittman, the head coach, and you tell him, hey, Coach Pittman, I don't want to waste my year of eligibility. I'd like to redshirt. Because he played special teams his freshman year. He started 2023. Then he's at last year. Then he's in 2024, and he's injured. And he says, hey, I just want to play 4 games. Don't want to use my red shirt. I want a red shirt. And Sam Pittman says, hey, we're not going to red shirt you for somebody else. We're not going to red shirt you to save your eligibility for other people. And he said to the coach, he said to Sam Pittman, this is early in the season, he said, no way, Coach. I'm a hog. I want to be here. I'm a hog. I'm not leaving. So Coach trusted him, believed him, and let him sit out the rest of the year. And only let him play, only used him for 4 games. This is a starting caliber offensive lineman in the SEC. Multi-year starter. Very good player. And he did him dirty, bro. He did him dirty. He did him dirty. He hit the transfer portal, went to Ole Miss, and he's getting paid at Ole Miss. That's a cold move, bro. Let me tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of somebody's wife. Hey, and let me ask you guys out there, all you married dudes out there, if you're married right now and your wife starts going to the gym, she ain't working out for you, buddy. She's not working out for you, especially if you're not going with her. She's working out for the next guy. Patrick was out there lifting weights for the next guy. All year long, he was thinking about the next guy. When you go and ask the coaching staff to redshirt, but you still want to work out, you still want to go to practice, but you're going to redshirt, save your eligibility. Why, coach? Why you want to do that? Hey, well, look, coach, I just want to play. I want to be a starter for the next 2 years. I don't want to waste this year of eligibility. All right, man. You know, coach is trying to win games. He's about to get fired. Coach is on the hot seat, bro. And you say, no, I'm a hog. I'm here. I'm married. I got the ring. I got your last name. I ain't going nowhere. Yes, she is, bro. And she starts buying perfume. I got news for you. I got news for you. It's like I like to tell these young soldiers, man. I like to tell these young kids. If you ever get a girl home from the club and you're taking off her clothing and her bra and panties match, they match, bro. You didn't get lucky. It wasn't all game. You ain't got no riz, bro. You ain't got no game. Oh, man, I got this. Yeah, I pulled this one. No, you didn't. You're only there because she wants you to be there. You're only there because she decided for you to be there. She had it planned well before you ever did, bro. If her shit is matching, she had it planned. If this dude right here comes up to you and says, hey, coach, I want a red shirt because I'm going to be here for the next 2 years. No, he's not. Coaches, if a player comes to you and says, I want a red shirt, man, you better go buy him a red shirt. Get your ass back in the game. Go play, bro. I got to feed my family. We got to win these games. I ain't worried about your college career. Oh, but you burned my red shirt, putting me on special teams. You're one of the best 11 players. That's why you're on the field, bro. I'm burning your red shirt. I don't want to hear this shit. You dudes leave me in a heartbeat. I'm out here trying to win games. You guys ain't loyal to shit. These hoes ain't loyal. What? That's these dudes. What up, Josh Thompson? Josh Thompson, probably the best offensive lineman in the transfer portal. Probably. Josh Thompson, complete stud, leaving Northwestern, going to LSU. I'm watching tape. I said, that's my guy. Michigan kid, coming out of high school, only offer he had was Northwestern. He didn't complain. He just went to Northwestern and started 31 games. All-conference player in the Big Ten. Went on visits, went and talked to Tennessee, Michigan, Auburn, Ohio State late, Michigan State late. I don't care. I'm going to LSU. Why? He said, yo, and I quote, LSU was good people and people I want to be around. I don't know what that means, bro, but I know they just had a guy named Kyron Lacey there. I know they didn't let him meet the wide receivers. They let him meet the other linemen. They let him meet the coaches. He wasn't hanging out with the wide receivers and running backs. He wasn't hanging out with the corners. Are you shitting me, bro? He said they're good people, and I just wanted to be around them. Josh Thompson's a good kid, man. I think he's an NFL caliber player. I think he's amazing, and shout out to LSU. You got yourselves a complete stud, a monster. Real talk. Love that move. One of my favorite players. All right, then we have Emmanuel Pregnon. Rico, he hasn't given up a sack in 3 years. That's what somebody wrote, man. Somebody wrote this on one of them recruiting websites, whether it be On 3 or 24/7. Somebody said this man has not given up a sack in 3 years. Remember what I told you. If you're a guard, you usually don't give up sacks. But it's not true. I went right here and I looked, and it says he started all 11 games he played and allowed 2 sacks. In 2021, 2022. What are we doing? 2022. He allowed 2 sacks in 2020. Stop with the rumors, bro. Stop with the bullshit. Is he a good player? Sure. Is he the best player in the transfer portal? Oregon got the best. Shut up. He's not bad. Just stop. Right? So, Emmanuel Pregnon, if you guys don't remember, he was supposed to go to the NFL draft. And then before the bowl game, they announced, oh no, he's going to come back to USC for another season. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. He's not coming back to USC for another season. He's coming back to hit the transfer portal for another season. So he wants to be a day 1, day 2 guy. He's got the right metrics. Hopefully he plays well for Oregon. They're banking on it. He's not bad. But he did allow 14 pressures. And pressures are terrible. And if you're allowing 14 pressures, that's a problem. If you guys, sacks are one thing. Pressures can make plays ugly. Pressures cause interceptions. Pressures are a very problematic thing. Some could argue they're worse than sacks. Seriously. There's an argument out there for pressures and hurries to be worse than sacks. They cause bad throws. They probably cause more turnovers. I know sacks don't cause a lot of turnovers. You just lose a couple yards and you go about your business. Pressures, oh boy, it could be a problem. Those probably cause more turnovers for sure. Here's what I'm gonna tell you about Emmanuel Pregnon. I went and checked his PFF scores, and you guys know I don't like PFF scores. Listen to what I'm saying right now. He is the 3rd rated best run blocking lineman at USC. At USC, bro. At USC, he was the 3rd best run blocking lineman. Not in the Big Ten. Not in California on Tuesdays. At USC, he was 3rd on the team in run blocking rating. Now, he was the top 1 in pass blocking, but guess what? His pass blocking rating was 73.3. That is not elite. That's the best one at USC, but that's not elite. But among USC offensive linemen, he's the 3rd best run grade. That's trash, bro. That's trash, bro. You're the 3rd best dude on your starting 5. You're not, man. Stop with these rankings, bro. Get them out of my face. Guard and center here, Braelin Moore. Complete stud, leaving Virginia Tech, going to LSU. Multi-year starter. He is a center. Now, here's the problem. Listen to me. He's a very good center. And they obviously brought him in because they were having issues at center. Now, if you don't know, the starting center for LSU this year was a guy named DJ Chester. DJ Chester's a Georgia kid. I know him through and through. I watched every single game he ever played in high school. Shout out to Elka, Eagles Landing Christian. So he's from Elka, small school here in Georgia. He goes, and that's a great school. Great players come out of Elka. And he goes to LSU, and he gets the starting job. And he struggles with it as a redshirt freshman this year. And they obviously didn't like that, so they go and get a more senior guy. So what happens now? Like, do you take Braelin Moore? You're going to make him the starter. Do you move DJ Chester to guard? Or do you move Braelin Moore to guard? I don't know. Does one of them hit the portal? Don't know. We're going to find out. And that's why I have to assess entire position groups. But it's a good problem to have for LSU. They need competition. They need an upgrade. And I believe Braelin Moore is an upgrade. So shout out to him. Shout out to them. Pretty good stuff. Hunter Zambrano, if you saw early on in the transfer portal, before all these elite players joined, Hunter Zambrano joined. And this is where Texas Tech is just spending money, right? Excuse me. Texas Tech said, I will. Remember that. They said, I will. I'm going to spend money and get you guys a good offensive line. And when the linemen jumped in the portal, one of the first guys that jumped in was this Hunter Zambrano guy from Illinois State. And immediately he got a high rating. When he committed to Texas Tech, they lowered his rating. He was one of the top-ranked guys, and it got lowered when he committed to Texas Tech. I hate that. I keep track of it all, guys. They can never change a player's rating without me noticing. Happens all the time. And all it is, if you ever look at these ratings, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but as you go through them, you'll just see when a player commits to a certain school, they just assume that player is of a certain caliber. I'm going to give you guys an example as I scroll down here because I just don't want to talk out of turn. Look at this right here. Example right here. Rico, what do you think of the Minnesota guys? It doesn't matter what I think of them. Any player committing to Minnesota will be ranked down here. That's what they're doing, okay? So, keep looking. There's North Carolina guys. They'll rank them together. And they'll just say, oh, yeah, if you decided you're going to this school, this is where you get ranked. And if you see them move a little bit, the numbers are the same the whole way. It's not really moving. So you're going through. Let's keep going. Let me prove this. There's UCF. They're equivalent because they're both going to UCF. And UCF players rank down here at the .86 range. You just keep going. There'll be anomalies. There'll be one-offs. But by and large, I've studied this for years now. This website, all they do is just say, oh, you decided to go to this school? Oh, this is your rating then. This is what we think you are. All the players from this particular school are going to go. If you go to this school, you're ranked this. There's Purdue. Purdue players are going to be ranked down here. If you're from UNLV and you went to Purdue, you're the same. Purdue guys are going to be down here. Memphis will be down here for sure. There's Tulsa. We'll rank them the same. It's lazy ranking, dude. It's a lazy evaluation. Southern Miss. We don't care where you come from. We don't even know who you are. We're just going to give you guys the same rating because you come from the same school, because you're going to the same school. You wouldn't notice this unless you dig down deep, but they do this all the time. They just rank players, and they go, yeah, this is what it is. Like, the guy could be good. I come down here sometimes. I find studs. This is why my platform exists. I'll find a stud, and then you'll be like, oh, no. And sometimes it'll be they're departing from the same school. But usually it's wherever you commit to, they'll change the ranking, and they'll just shit on you. Enough of that. When I see it in another position group, I'm going to put it in the show so you guys can see it. Excuse me. Let's go back up, though. All right. Who was I talking about? Hunter Zambrano leaving and going over to Texas Tech. So Hunter coming out, he was supposed to go to the NFL draft, but he got injured, and he feels like he needs to get some experience. They're going to be starting him at tackle. He does have experience at guard, but they're probably going to start him at tackle. He only played in 2 games, so he was injured. So this is one of those guys, you would think he's going to be great and everything, and then he doesn't. But I want to tell you guys, when I say this, don't ever fault the players. They're chasing an NFL dream, and when they're told you're not going to be an NFL draft pick, they got to go find somewhere to go. Shout out to Hunter Zambrano. He did not take a bunch of visits. He went to one school. He went to Texas Tech. He heard how much I Will is paying, and that was it. Now, he can tell you all the time he wasn't attracted to anybody else. He wasn't interested. I'm going to Texas, and let's go. Congratulations to him. He found a team that believed him, and he rocked it. He didn't visit a bunch of schools. He didn't want to do it. Monroe Mills shocked the world, decided to go to Virginia. Now, Virginia's rebuilt their offensive line. I talked about this in a TikTok video. Virginia, they got their starting center from UAB. They got 2 other linemen along with Monroe Mills, but Mills is a good player. Leaving Louisville, going to Virginia, just kind of shocks you because he was supposed to go to Kansas State. But this is a young man that started his career at Oklahoma State, then went to Texas Tech, and then he went to Louisville. So he started 33 games in his career. Big kid, 6'7", 315 pounds. I think he's a good player. Shout out to Virginia. I am encouraged. This is one of my top 10 offensive linemen in the transfer portal. I think he's a very good player. I don't know what's going on in Virginia, but they're about to get a really good offense. 3 good linemen that I see in the transfer portal. Great quarterback coming in. If they have the weapons, they can figure some shit out. I know. Virginia doesn't win games. I got it. They probably won't win more than 5 or 6 games. But I'm so impressed with what they're doing and what they're grabbing. When I go to assess them, careful. They've really put it together. Phillip Daniels, leaving Minnesota, going to Ohio State. Rico, he's got to be amazing. Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say. He's a young man. He's actually from Ohio. He went to a high school in Cincinnati. And he wanted to go to Ohio State, but they didn't want him. They didn't offer him. And then he goes to Minnesota. And in 2023, he redshirted, saw no game time. And then last year, he starts games towards the end of the year. I think he only had 4 starts towards the end of the year. So we're talking about a young kid showing potential, and he's starting games for Minnesota, but it's not like he's a bona fide superstar by any means. He's still very young, 3 years of eligibility left. He's obviously the future on offensive line for Minnesota, and now he's gone. But I don't see a guy that I mean, they said he's a potential starter next year. I'll have to do some real assessing. I'd be really surprised to see him starting at Ohio State next year. Eventually, I think he's great depth. I think it's a good signing by Ohio State. They should have signed him out of high school, right? They're not assessing talent correctly. But this isn't like one of the top. This isn't a 4-star, top-rated. No, that's none of that shit. This is silly. You put him ahead of, like, look at Phillip Daniels here, right? He's good. He's cool. Will Jados has started 40 games. He's been the starter for 3 years at Miami of Ohio. He was an all-conference guy 2 years ago. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, that's just silly. You feel me? Silly. Whatever. Elijah Pritchett here, 5 stars, former 5-star, complete stud. Seeing him finally get into the starting lineup and do his thing. Yeah, they need him at Nebraska. It's a good signing. I'm very critical of Nebraska players being signed. I just think Nebraska's signing some guys who I don't like personally, but I don't know them like that. But shout out to Elijah Pritchett from Georgia. Again, most of these players are from Georgia, by the way. Georgia's putting out amazing players for the last, I'd say, at least decade now. Columbus, Georgia, Carver, good player. I remember watching him, is what I'm saying. But it's pretty cool, man. This is a consolation prize, though. I believe they wanted Pete. Remember that big kid from New Mexico State? They wanted Pete, and since they didn't get Pete, they had to go and switch and get Elijah Pritchett, which is fine, but they wanted a guy who'd been starting for 3 years. Instead, you get a kid who's started a little bit. He ended up getting out there and starting for Alabama, but it's not like the slam dunk you're used to seeing or anything like that. He was at Alabama for 3 years lifting weights, so got to mean something. But he started at right tackle for about 10 games, if I remember correctly. I think he's a good player. Will Jados, hidden gem. 38 starts while at Miami of Ohio. If you remember Miami of Ohio, this is a guy, like if you look at Miami of Ohio football for the last 2 years, the one thing that we could always bank on for them is they're going to have a dominant offensive line. They're going to be in the trenches just dominant. And he's one of the reasons why. So between him and Reggie Virgil coming over, the wide receiver from Miami of Ohio, it's nice that they have a little pipeline for Miami of Ohio kids going to Texas Tech. This is a bargain shop, if you will. It is. They went out and got a stud group of 5 player, probably a little cheaper than it is getting a Power 4 all-conference guy or something like that, or somebody, a former 5-star from Alabama like Elijah Pritchett right above him. But don't get it twisted. Good player. So shout out to Texas Tech. Another one. We're just going to build our team and go get all the best players we can find. Texas Tech has made huge upgrades in the transfer portal. Let's see if it equates to something on the field. I don't know. But good player. Very good player to get. Then Daniel King, leaving Troy, going to North Carolina. Talk about a good player to get. Daniel King was going to go to the NFL draft, but with the JUCO thing going, he got an extra year of eligibility. So he comes back and he goes to play for a guy who's going to get him ready for the NFL. He's going to play for Bill Belichick at North Carolina. Congratulations to him. Out of high school, Daniel King was going to go to Georgia Southern. But I think he had academic issues because he ended up at Georgia Military Academy, which is a JUCO. And he played there for 1 year, and then he went to Troy, and he balled out of control at Troy. Started 40 games, second team All-Sun Belt. He's usually a starting guard, and then halfway through this year, they moved him to tackle. He can do anything. Like, he can play anywhere. He's great. Only allowed 1 sack at tackle. It's pretty good because edge rushers are trying to get past you. It's a different story. So I like Daniel King a lot. By the way, we're ending the show tonight on Perry, so I will be getting back to the chat here shortly. But Daniel King, great signing by North Carolina. Very good player. Good to get. And I don't think it's like, I don't mean to be rude, but I think Daniel King is probably better than Howard Sampson. Like today, if we had tryouts, I'm taking King over Sampson for sure. We're talking about a 40-game starter at Troy versus a guy who started 12 games in his life and played 87 snaps before that. Nah, I like Daniel King. Have you seen the rushing production put out by Troy with Kamani Vidal for years? Like, Daniel King was the guy. So him and Graham, or whatever his name is, right? The kid who went to Tulane, Derek. So it's just one of those things. Like, I like Daniel King a lot. Carver Willis. Oh boy. Excuse me for a second. Carver Willis. First thing is he committed to Washington sight unseen. He did not even visit before the commitment. I think he committed on a Wednesday, then he went for his visit on that Friday. Carver Willis is a player I would not want on my football team. And this is just me. He might be a good player. He's been at Kansas State for many years. He knows how to work, compete. He has a dream of playing in the NFL. I don't like guys like Carver Willis. They're not all in. I'm going to explain this to you guys. And whether you agree with me or not, it doesn't really matter. It's my fucking platform. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth of how I feel about certain things. I run into these people in the Army. And if you guys wonder why I always bring up the Army, it's because in the Army, you're a senior leader, you're a football coach to young men, 18 to 25-year-olds, 18, just like college coaches. And you have to, you run across these individuals and you have to try to get them to emulate you. You have to get them to be an extension of you on the battlefield or on the football field, right? Same concept. You're coaching, training, leading, mentoring, and you're teaching these young men life lessons, and you're trying to get the most out of them. And you come across certain ones, and you realize they're not all in. Like, they're not about this life, and they won't make it. They're not built for it. So they'll tell you they want to be great at it, but when you tell them this is a 24-hour day job, and you need to be immersed in it, they're not committed to it. They're not about that life. And when you tell them, hey, you worked really hard this week, that's 7 days. Let me just explain to you how to be great. You got to do that 52 more times. Because you got to do that for over a year. Every year. For the next 20 years. And they just look at you like, you're crazy. You're not, like, they're not mentally prepared for what you're asking them to do. And I say all this to tell you that Carver Willis, I'm sure he has aspirations of playing in the NFL. And I'm sure he's a great young man. But you guys got to listen to me, man. I read shit. I read young men, like body language, decision making, their approach to the game, their approach to decision making, whatever it is. I read it so well, and that's why I'm right all the time. Like, I'm wrong sometimes. But when I make predictions in the transfer portal or on the field or my assessment, I am holistically more accurate than so many people in this world that I'm able to do this for a living because I'm telling you I'm right about this. So, this young man, you know why he chose Washington? He says he chose Washington because it's a dry run for what it's going to be like in the NFL. What does that even mean? Well, he said it means Washington is in a big city. Washington is near Seattle, and I've never lived in a big city. So I chose Washington because it's a big city. I come from Durango, Colorado, 18,000 people. And I went to Manhattan, Kansas, 60,000 people. I need to experience a big city. And he starts talking about the things he wants to do when he gets to Washington. And he lists the following things. I want to get stuck in traffic. I want to do all the tourist things. When he went on his visit to Washington, he wasn't too interested in facilities. He wasn't too interested in the football team. He was interested in taking a ferry to Bainbridge Island. He wants to climb Mount Rainier this summer. He wants to go to the Olympic National Park this summer. He wants to spend time in nature with his family, girlfriend, and roommate. He turned off his phone when he entered the transfer portal because 54 teams called him. Most people want teams to call them. He's not waiting for the phone call. He turned it off because it was too much pressure and it bothered him, and he couldn't just hang out and have lunch with his girlfriend or hang out with his roommate. He just wants to be a part of nature and go see things. He wants to do other things. What? Yeah, that's what he thinks. Washington's motto is be a pro. And he wants to be a pro. I don't know if this young man thinks Washington's football team is still pumping out first-round draft pick offensive linemen. And if he didn't know, the guys who were doing that 2 years ago, they're all gone. They're all at Alabama now. Like, it doesn't make sense. He just talks about how he needs to learn how to be a pro while in college. He's been in college for a long time. He's coming back for his final year. He needs to learn because his parents didn't play high school sports. So he has no point of reference and no frame of mind to pull from. This is the kind of guy that quits football to go be a monk in the woods. This is the type of dude who pulls who's the kid? Who's the quarterback? Andrew Luck. Yeah. And the person who was recruiting him to go to Washington was Brennan Carroll. Brennan Carroll is Pete Carroll's son. Brennan Carroll just left Washington to go be the Las Vegas Raiders offensive line coach with his dad. So now that the guy who was recruiting you to come to this school is gone, he says, oh, no, I wasn't committed to him. I'm not committed to a coach. I'm committed to the program. I believe you, bro. I think he's committed to going on nature walks. I don't know what that is. Like, for me, hearing a guy turn off his cell phone because he couldn't go to lunch with his girlfriend, your priorities are not these coaches giving you an opportunity. Your priorities are lunch with your girlfriend. Your priorities are not your profession. It's your social life. It's your family. You know, I used to tell soldiers, if we all preach it. Oh, care about family, Dude, if I wanted you to have a family, I would have issued you one, right? That's what they all say. Listen, man, we all care about our family. We all talk about it, but you got to feed your family. You're turning down calls from coaches. He says he only wanted to go to Washington, nowhere else. What is so great about Washington? And what pedigree is he referring to? What known track record is he giving? The only thing I know is that this kid is an outdoorsy kid, and he wanted to go live in Seattle. And he said, that's probably the place I want to live when football's over, is move to Seattle. That's what I'm telling my girlfriend and my family. Seattle sounds like a really good spot to be after football. Motherfucker. I'm curious. Carver, Willis, you come from money? That's how you come across. Like, it ain't shit. There are kids right now. It's National Letter of Intent Day. It's National Signing Day right now. There are kids staring at their phone, hoping a coach texts them, hoping a coach calls, and you're turning it off to go have lunch with some girlfriend. I just don't. We're not on the same page, bro. We're just not. I don't know. Michael Switzer is the new offensive line coach for Washington. Michael Switzer, no, he is not related to Barry Switzer, but I want to tell you guys something cool about Michael Switzer. It's always nice when I see a guy become a coach that I remember. So Michael Switzer used to play football at Ball State in the MAC. Started 51 games in a row at Ball State. That dude's a tough dude, man. And he's working his way up the ranks, the coaching ranks, the hard way, bro. He started, I think, in the FCS, and he's working his way up. So shout out to him. But this young man just, as soon as I did my research, I just got into it, and I was just like, ugh, this is not the type of dude. I don't want this guy around me. This dude talking about nature and what, he doesn't get enough time off. He doesn't get enough time away from the football team, and he's picking this team because he likes the surrounding area. Not the facilities, not the coaches, not the no. He wants to go on nature walks. He wants to go to the nearest park. I'm sure the coaches are ecstatic to get him. Hey, whatever it takes to get him in the door. But these are not the dudes I want. Personally, I want meat eaters. That dude is a herbivore. Now, he might be tough as shit on the field. Really strong, and he's going to let you. Mentally, a dude's going to turn off the phone. It gets tough. He said, I was never a 5-star player coming out of high school. So this recruiting was very overwhelming for me. Shut up, bro. You got in the portal. You knew you were good. You knew they were going to come calling. Congratulations. Rahtrel Perry, last guy before I go to the chat. Get your questions in. TikTok, move over to YouTube, put it in. Rahtrel Perry, leaving Central Connecticut. Before we go any further, shout out to Central Connecticut. They made the FCS playoffs this year. Not the greatest team. I think they lost 5 games. But they signed Romello Tables. Romello Tables, one of my high school film review kids. I told you he was an FCS caliber player. Nobody listened to me. They kept ignoring me. He couldn't get any offers above NAIA, above Division III. And I just kept writing it on Twitter. Please, somebody listen to me. This kid is an FCS caliber quarterback. He's great. And then they signed him. Roar! What an amazing job. Shout out to Central Connecticut for signing Romello Tables. But let's talk about Rahtrel Perry. So I haven't watched a lot of Rahtrel Perry tape. I only had 2 games on him. And so I went back and watched the only 2 games I had on him. So they played 2 FBS teams this year. One was UMass, and it was a shootout, 35-31. And in that game, they were throwing a lot. They were doing what they do. And the other game I saw was the first game of the season. They got blown the hell out by Central Michigan, and it was 66-10. So I went back and watched those games. Usually when you're trailing in a game, you got to throw the ball. That means I'm going to watch you in your pass pro as well. I watched Perry. He did not allow any sacks. He did not look overwhelmed against FBS competition. He looked like a good player. Does he look like a guy that could be starting at Maryland? I guess. I don't think very highly of Maryland. But this man had offers from Ohio State, Florida, Florida State, Pitt, and Syracuse. And what I want to commend some of these young men for is they've been identifying teams and they've been picking teams over the bench. They paid attention. There are transfer portal players who are not paying attention, but most of these offensive linemen pick teams where they're going to be the starter. Theoretically, at least these first 25. So shout out to Perry going to Maryland. Looks like you made a smart choice because you would have been on the bench at some of these other schools for sure. They wanted you for depth. And I don't blame them. Everybody wants to improve their 85, but it is what it is. All right, we'll go to chat one last time, and then we'll wrap up the show. Thank you guys for being here. Let me see what we got. Oh, by the way, thank you to Magic for tipping for that super chat. I really appreciate the $2, bro. Where were we before we went? Before we left. I'm assuming, there it is. Ross Harrell says, same Patrick Snipes, good to meet a fellow MVP. Word. Shout out to you guys. You guys should meet on the Discord server. Malik Benson was injured, then moved to away from the team. FSU's terrible backfield freshman outplayed him. Just proving your point. Thank you so much, Ross Harrell. You ain't got to prove my point, bro. Go back and watch his JUCO tape when he got ranked number 1 in the country. Go back and watch it. Dude looks like Randy Moss. It looks like Randy Moss. Remember, Randy Moss blowing past everybody. How tall is Randy Moss? 6'5"? I'm watching that tape, and I'm like, dude, Malik Benson is the next Randy Moss. He looks amazing. They have him ranked number 1 in JUCO. They have him ranked. He's going to Alabama. He's a 4-star. He's the next Randy Moss. He's amazing. He looked that good on the tape. And then I stopped for a second, and I went and checked his metrics. And I'm like, he's got to be 6'5". And then I looked, and it said he's 6'1". And I was like, the fuck? How's he 6'1"? We go back to the tape. No, he's right there. He's 6'5". He's not 6'5". He's 6'1". The corner is 5'4". All over the tape. He is dusting a corner that's 5'4", 5'5" at best. Dude was probably Mexican. It's crazy. I'm keeping it real. And I don't hate Cam Davis or Sam Singleton. Shout out to you, Ross Harrell. I remember this from your TikTok short you did. Thank you so much. The CC billionaire stuff. Word. Do you feel as though quarterback upgrades at Utah fixes enough of the offensive line issues from the last 2 years, or should they have looked into the portal for help? Robert Lopez, I'd imagine Utah feels really good about the offensive linemen they have, who they're recruiting, and they don't want to spend that kind of money. They really don't. They don't have that kind of money to keep up with the price of these offensive linemen for the most part. I think they just got to win with recruiting and developing their offensive linemen. Now, they got Devin Dampier. He's incredibly fast. That solves a lot of your problems, right? Dual threat guy, not going to get sacked, going to escape pressure, do things. An offensive coordinator who knows how to get the most out of the players and do their things. As long as Devin Dampier, excuse me, doesn't throw 14 interceptions. He was 14-14 last year, or 12-12, one of those two. It's an even number, 14-14 or 12-12. Somebody fact check me on that. I'm throwing out numbers off memory, bro. I'm Rico. I'm RicoKnows. But yeah, that's the only thing that's there. So it is what it is. I hope they figure it out. Willie Bobo says, Theo, it's me, Alize. I love the show. I love you. Shout out to Alize. That is my niece. What up, girl? Shout out to Willie Bobo. And thank you for watching the show. I appreciate you. Thank you. You're loved as well. I hope all is well. Thank you guys for watching the show. I know offensive linemen can be boring sometimes. I do my best to try to keep you guys informed, and you guys know what's going on. I read your stuff. I read everything. I appreciate you guys. I hope you learned about some offensive linemen in the transfer portal and the fit for them at their new teams. We will be going in depth on the next list. Remember, defensive linemen are next. Keep your eye out for it. Please hit the bell on this. So you go to the page, you hit the bell, you'll be notified every time I go live, and you guys watch it. Shout out to you. Shout out to Alize. Shout out to my people. Your friends don't know. But Rico knows. I'll catch you guys on the flip side, man. Peace.